I'm Jim Collison and live from Gallup Studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 4, recorded on August 30th, 2018. Theme Thursday is a Gallup Webcast series that dives deep into the Clifton Strengths themes one at a time, and today's theme is individualization. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you right below the main video window. Just peek down there, little chat wing window, bottom left-hand corner, it says log in. Click that button, choose the guest account, take the guest name and the numbers out, put your name in and hit submit. You can sign in with any of the social media accounts if you want to, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those available for you. Would love to have you join us in the chat room. Best way to get your questions in and best way to interact with us, especially during the post show. You can also pop that chat wing window out, by the way, if you're listening live. There's some red boxes in the upper right-hand corner, and you can select those. It'll pop it out. You can put it anywhere on your desktop. If you're listening recorded to the recorded version or have questions about anything related to strengths, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com. For all your Clifton Strengths coaching and resources and training needs, there you go. It's a little early for this, Maika. You can also catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio. We call that podcasting, available for you off our coach's blog. Every way imaginable, listen to it. We have individualized just for you. It's available out there at the coach's blog. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She works as a workplace consultant here at Gallup. Always great to have you on Theme Thursday, Maika, and welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. What a fun sort of way to switch things up and maybe focus on the uniqueness of our calendar and the uniqueness of individualization.
We said, we were joking earlier, we changed the time of this. And for people who are listening to us on a time-shifted manner, they don't care. You don't care.
They also don't know they're in a time-shifted manner. But if we're in your earbuds today, you probably don't care about this.
Well, but we moved it just for me. I had an event that I need to do that I couldn't move the time of that down in Lincoln. I get to speak to some college students about strengths today, which is going to be pretty awesome. And for many of them, the first time they've heard this language. And so I always appreciated, I got with you and said, hey, can we move the time? And the community, we were super surprised. I was super surprised how many would show up today. But I think a good example when we think about individualization of the crowd adjusted for the one, right? And
right.
I really appreciated that. But Maika, as we think about individualization today, let's dig in. What's kind of the brief description?
Sure. Individualization is a relationship building theme. And I think in 3 short words, its differences are advantages, which, yes, is also one of our principles of Clifton Strengths coaching. It's about quickly spotting and appreciating uniqueness in others, being very present with people based on who they are, not what they're a part of or how they're associated. So if you've got high individualization, chances are you can anticipate different scenarios, never assuming that things are going to be repeated or not really looking for or expecting sameness, but instead really being able to isolate what's going to be unique, what's going to be different.
When we think about the best of it, what is the best of individualization? All season, we've been talking about success factors. We'll be spending a lot of time talking about that today. But what's the best of individualization?
Sure. Remember, season 4 really is about how do you present your very best self? How do you tell people what you have to offer your team or your group? If you've got high individualization, you bring freshness, the ability to stay relevant, to stay present, because you know that every situation is different. It's sort of the opposite of ever having an autopilot. I also think individualization can enhance the speed of relationships by really noticing people for who they are, not having to use benchmarks of other indicators that might tell you who a person is, like age, race, gender, years of experience, instead being able to look and truly see the person. I think that individualization also can customize the approach that we have outward. So it might be how we communicate, how we sell, the insights that we offer as a team to our customers, as a family to our community, but being really able to tailor that approach.
I have individualization 10, and so it drives me to make sure the coaching community is that we have a message, and it's not just a standard message, right? That we're meeting people kind of where they're at in the various forms and methods, and it really keeps me awake. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about it. You made a statement, enhancing the speed of relationships. I think sometimes that's seen as actually slowing things down because I have to individualize. Can you just expand on that a little bit more for me, Maika?
That's interesting. So what I was thinking about with enhancing that speed of relationship is you don't have to take time to get to know somebody and classify, are they this type of person? Are they that type of person? Instead, you get to see that exact person as an isolated scenario, not as somebody that you have to compare to others in your brain. And that ability as the receiver of individualization, I do not have it high. It's number 23. And I'm sure I've said this out loud in previous seasons. It's probably the one that I envy the most, and that I'm most blown away by when it's turned on me. And as the recipient of individualization, I always feel like that person has seen me really quickly. Now, they may, as you say, have done their homework and have had to get myself and what's different about me and my experience sort of in their head. And yeah, you're right, that could slow things down. But when you think about what service does it offer for others, I think on the other side, on the receiving side, it makes you that much faster to say, wow, they get me. I want to hear what they have to say.
We had a really great example of this last night. We started our high school program, so it starts all over again. I kind of talk about it all year, but the season with school starting here in the United States or in the fall, our season of Get Hip or high school internship program starting again. And I was really impressed. The leadership, we have college leadership that helps me with it. And we had an assessment. We didn't even tell them we were giving them this assessment. It's kind of a code assessment. How much code do they know? And so as they were talking about it, they thought, no, we want to do this. And we're going to develop individual training plans on YouTube for each one of the students, kind of based on what they tell us in these assessments about their code. And I thought, wow, that's a really good, talk about an exercise in individualization of working it through. And they had a whole set of 50 videos that we come up with. And then they're going to kind of prescribe to each one of them, hey, you're here, let's get you started here on these videos and such. And I thought that was a really good example of how individualization can work best in a scenario. And they really wanted to do that. We didn't ask them to. That was their idea, right? And so great opportunity for them to, to be able to practice that. When we think of that, that's a great environment for them to set it up. What other kind of environments? What should we ask for? What other kind of things can we look for, Maika, with individualization?
So that gives me an idea that isn't in our notes here, Jim. I'll just use it as the first answer, which is think about at what stage in the game you're individualizing. It might feel very different and might be worth sort of the work that it takes for you to individualize an onboarding experience for somebody. You may need to then sort of back off that individualization, that customized approach, and allow them to take a more standard step through the middle of an activity. And then maybe you come back at certain instances. Maybe it's through recognition. Maybe it's through how are we closing something? Maybe it's when do we have to push somebody to the next learning phase? But think a little bit when you're thinking about how do I do more, think a little bit about what is the best time for me to change things for the individual, and how can I really make the most out of my desire to individualize by making sure that that's falling in the ripest place of that storyboard. Also think about putting yourself in a place that could be otherwise seen as being standardized. So events that repeat, tasks that sort of cross audiences or cross customers and therefore are all the same. In those situations, if you raise your hand and you become a part of it, you could be that spotlight voice of insight for what it is that we need to make sure and notice. I think about, for example, I think I've told this story before, but my dad's a commercial pilot, and he flies the same route over and over and over again. But when you talk to him, he never talks about it as being a repeated effort. He has high individualization. And so no one flight is ever the same. And he can tell you, he's also got high strategic and high context. And he'll say, there is probably 8 to 10 specific factors that make every single flight different. So that idea of never being on autopilot is really kind of a great pun that I didn't intend, but look for those opportunities that other people might see as repeated, because that will help you be a big fish in that sort of standardized pond and be a great voice of insight. I also think specifically using individualization for opportunities to build great recognition. You are going to know exactly what speaks to people. I have a colleague with high individualization. I'll never forget when I worked in a different Gallup office years ago, I saw an email chain. After this had happened, I'd been recognized for something, and my manager had given me a gift card to this really off-the-wall, super boutique store that I didn't think anybody knew about, but I was obsessed with. And that was phenomenal recognition, not just of what the task was, but being able to say, I recognize you, as in I see you. I see what you're into. And later I got to see this chain of email because my manager didn't have high individualization, but I noticed that one of my colleagues who did had told my manager, "Hey, Micah's really into this store. If you're going to give her anything, this is where it should be." So you don't have to be in charge of somebody's recognition to raise your hand for making recognition more personal.
Micah, Chris asked a question in the chat room. He says, how do all those individualizers keep the plate spinning? When you think about these different relationships, what are the kind of environments, what are the kinds of things can we ask for to help or individualization? That's a hard one to say like really fast.
It's also a hard one to type.
How do they keep those plates spinning?
Realize that the relationship building aspect of you is in many ways going to be the strongest piece, that your ability to really connect with people is going to be important. So I came up with this term. I don't know if it exists, but it does today. I'm calling it interpersonal autonomy, either the ability to create teams, the ability to choose your best partnerships, or to look for relationships where you've got some fluidity across groups so that you know where you're going to fit best. With individualization, you're going to be a natural spotter of unique potential. There's a hopefulness, I think, to individualization, especially when you're engaged and your well-being is high. You can see things that maybe other people can't, that are good and that are positive and that are that are the potential in others. You can also use that on your own understanding of yourself and who's going to be your best partner. So you don't have to individualize and see that in every single person around you. That'd be a lot of plates to keep spinning. Pay attention to yourself and sort of set yourself up in that space where you know you're going to partner best. I also think one of the things you can ask for in terms of best environment for you is any sort of variance from what is standard. Even if you're following pretty rigid expectations, you're going to need to look for the nuance, appreciate what's different, anticipate it, and in many cases, even create some difference. You'll need to ask perhaps to have a voice during the planning stage. For example, there are certain things that just should not change, that are done a standard way for a standard reason. You'd hope most brain surgeries are pretty standardized and go the same way each time and are predictable and safe. But if you're somebody with high individualization, you can plan to make that even safer with the help of some individualization in the pre-prep, right in the planning stage, so that you should never be surprised by what's unique about the patient's history, the patient's fears, the patient's family. That ability. Now, I would guess that a small percentage of us listening today are actually brain surgeons, but use that idea to translate it into your own workspace and saying, if you can have some insight and some anticipation of what's going to be unique before you dive in to that standardized process, that's probably going to be the best use of your individualization, getting out of your own self and into a space where other people can benefit from it.
I think this is one of those areas where we really need to discover and find where we are best at it. Like, I want to encourage, you've got this theme. If you have it high, you have it, right? You have these propensities towards it. But I think this is where it takes some practice and some effort to figure out, like, what is the system that works for you? Whether it's somebody had mentioned in the chat room, and Brittany had said, excuse me, that she takes a lot of notes, detailed notes, right? That works for some. I have it high. That's not the best method for me. I'm better actually at individualizing with groups on the fly. Like, when I get in front of I'll be in front of 39 students today as we're doing a strengths discovery for them. In that hour, I can get very individualized with them and what they're doing and see them as individuals of a group of 39. And so in my teaching and the work that I do that way, and actually I kind of do this webcasting too, even though I know, we've got 18 in the chat room today, 20 listening live. It's not a crowd. This is a group made up of people, and I am thinking about you as we're talking. Like, it's not a matter of I'm not trying to blanket it to everybody, but I often spend times individually crafting statements that I want to go to an individual. I won't say it, but it's what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to individualize on the fly. Find that way that works for you. I think that's what's really key in this, is to hone in on that. Hey, what works for me? What's best for me? What makes me the most effective in this area, right?
Wow.
It's been, Micah, do you want to respond to that at all?
I think you just said the essence of what I envy the most about individualization. I try, and I was thinking about this, Jim, before we, in our pre-show, before we invited the rest of you into our world, Jim was telling me about the speech he's going to give to a bunch of students today. And I instantly had an idea of a quote that I saw yesterday that I loved, my immediate reaction was, oh, you should share this because it's good. Now, as I'm reading it to him, I realize, maybe it's just my ideation thinking this is cool and I should make a connection here. So there's a difference when you have individualization of not just saying you should have this because it's good. Instead, I think you say you should have this because it's good for you. And it's that it's just it's like sitting in a different chair from where I am without individualization, where I want you to feel comfortable and hospitable and connected with that woo piece. I want you to feel like I've made connections to different things that you've said with that ideation piece. But without individualization, I'm never quite sure. And I never totally care whether that is the best for the individual. I still see the group, and I love it when individualization is dialed up and can make that sort of a difference that I just don't even think about.
It's one of my favorite things to do. Eduardo in the chat room says, Jim, that's a lot of your woo coming out. Yeah, absolutely. The other themes around it have some influence. I have high woo. I also have high relator. And so, which is weird, right? To have woo and relator together, maybe. But it makes me want to go deep and wide, some deep and wide. It makes me want to go deep and wide very, very quickly with people, as well as, again, when I'm speaking with folks to get very personal. Like I want it to be at a very personal level. That is me. That's what I've discovered about me. That's what makes me in the role that I'm doing with recruiting. This is super key in recruiting, Maika, because I need to find the golden gems that are different in everyone, right? And I'll interview 100 people this fall, maybe more. And each one of them has a different story and has different contributions and will come in a different way. And I have to discover ways to take advantage of that, right? That's my role. That's my job. It fits very, very well. For some people, that would be very, very frustrating. They would want to apply a standard methodology, which, by the way, I do apply standard methodologies to the way we do recruiting. So it's not like it's individualized to the fact that we ask different questions. It's the same questions, but I have to think through what's the individual contribution that this person can bring in a world of chaos, right? I think folks high in individualization thrive in that environment. For some people, that just drive them crazy. High in consistency, you want that standardized across the board all the time. And so I love, this is one of the things I love about that theme, is it gives me the opportunity to find really the gems, what's the diamond in the rough, right? And say, man, this person could really do this specific thing or have this specific opportunity. And it really allows me, I think it's very empowering, I guess is what I'm saying, especially in the role that I'm in. Mike, as we think about what we can worry less about, we've talked about how to be successful with it. What do we need to worry about less?
Worry less about noticing, loving, or creating wide-reaching rules or expectations. That idea of doing what's best for everybody will probably never be doing any one thing for you. So also let go of understanding the world through any type of generalization. So a lot of times, these generalizations or classifications can be helpful for people. Things like generations, languages, other markers that define groups of people. They can be helpful sort of learning scaffolding, but they're not going to be probably as educational for you as maybe they are for other people. It doesn't mean that they're meaningless or that they're negative. It just probably won't be something that really speaks to you. So don't set yourself up to have to speak that language.
It's tough in a world of consistency, especially in the world I live in of hiring. We have to be consistent in some ways. Yeah. Like there's laws that say you have to be consistent. And so as having high individualization, I think we need to learn to live in that world, even though we're restricted in some areas. I don't think that gives us, like the rest of these themes, it doesn't give us carte blanche excuses to be like, well, I'm high individualization, I'm going to blow through that because I don't really believe in that. Well, guess what? The law says you need to believe in it, right?
So, Jim, how do you stay fair in your hiring? You're thinking about interviewing 100 people. How do you know that your approach is giving everybody a chance?
Yeah, just on the surface, because this could be a whole webcast just by itself. But we begin with consistency. So I have a standard set of questions, just like we do in our assessment, right? When folks come in for a role, they take a web assessment, standard set of questions. Everybody goes through it, same kind of scoring. I do something very, very similar. And this is, by the way, I didn't start this way. This is something I've kind of learned to do through the process. But a standard set of questions and kind of a rubric style that allows me to ask them questions and make sure I'm hearing their answers, right? In those answers, I'll hear their individual gifts, which is awesome. But it does give them a chance to answer all the same questions. It also, Mike, it gives me the ability to kind of compare at that point. If I'm not asking the same questions, I can't compare, right? I don't have a watermark. I don't have a benchmark to compare to. So it actually helps my individualization in this case to have consistency, which is kind of crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but I can individualize better when I have consistent answers, or at least consistent questions. Their answers tell me where they're different.
I think you may have just answered Ralph's question in the chat, which is fantastic. Why is fair necessary? And when you said it allows me to individualize better if I have some sort of a standardized approach where I don't miss things.
Yeah, it helps me out a ton. And there's a whole methodology and philosophy around this, probably not appropriate for this setting. But it's an amazing process for me. When we're working with individualization, Maika, what can we expect? What can we look for?
You can probably expect some pushback on any generalized rules that are going to apply across borders. So tap first into what they notice to be unique, and then help them extrapolate that to maybe some bigger goals or some bigger, more consistent ways of seeing the world. You might also expect them to be a little bit hesitant with superlatives like always or never or best or worst. These, for people with high individualization, tend to fall more into that oversimplification category that really miss the essence of what that person sees or what they appreciate. You can expect great and fast insight into what sets someone apart from others, and that quick ability to truly see and know people.
What about recognition? We've spent a lot of time thinking about that this year, and I think this is really cool. How do you recognize someone with high individualization?
Well, first, don't recognize them the same way as you recognize everyone else. Make sure there's something special and unique and personalized about it. Also, and this is probably true for everybody, but explore what they want to be recognized for, how they want to be recognized, and be obvious about the fact that you're exploring that. Don't try and surprise them by guessing. It's really, I think it's a fun and an honoring experience for you to really say, I want to make this unique and personalized to you. So let's talk about it. I would say, what do you look for? Well, notice times when they have deviated from the standard and it's either caught an important mistake, created an exceptional experience, or just made things easier. Those might be some of those gems that you're looking for to highlight and recognize.
And how do I stretch those with individualization? I'm the manager. I need to, we're not there. We're all not there. How do we grow? How do we stretch?
I would say challenge them to speed up their routine that they have to customize. So earlier you said, gosh, Micah, it's not fast. Maybe one of the things you can do is try to think about, how do we make this easier, faster, more smooth? So first, get in touch with how they best individualize. Do they need FaceTime? Do they need history? Do they need data? Then help them ask for what they need in order to individualize upfront. Help them gather that a little bit quicker. Also, you can stretch them by going to them when you need help embracing a situation that might seem new or might seem different. They can spot what's truly diverse about that situation and offer some insight.
Sharon in chat room says, recognize me for being good at recognizing you, which is a great way to kind of sum that up and kind of.
You got to Jerry Maguire it, right?
When I think about stretching, this example I used earlier where my interns picked up the our high school assessment and said, we want to customize this learning for each and every one of them. I think that's a great stretching exercise. Mm-hmm. They don't really know what they're up for at this point. And I think this is a great example. They know they want to do it. I need to check the top 5 on either one of those to see if there's individualization in there, if that's kind of driving it, or if it was just a good idea. But I think that's one of those exercises where you think, okay, here are 30 people. Let's come up with some individualized training plans to help them. What are you going to do? I think for an arranger who gets the opportunity to put on an event, to be able to customize things or help with things for 30 people or whatever, insert the number, whatever you have there. Could be one of those where it could really stretch them, give them an opportunity to stretch and learn and grow. When we think about partnering with them, how can we support them?
I think sometimes one of the challenges that presents itself, especially when we're just learning about individualization, is there's this almost joke sometimes we'll tell as we're teaching people about this theme where if you ask anybody with individualization for their opinion, you'll usually get the answer, well, it depends. And that can be really frustrating if you're trying to partner with somebody with high individualization. It's nailing jello to the wall if it's always different. I would challenge that a little bit by saying this idea of uniqueness and difference and customization, whatever's different can be named and can be improved upon. We can get better at anticipating it, at making it comfortable. It doesn't have to always be something that's ever changing. So, if you're partnering with somebody with high individualization, discuss what rules we're going to have be consistent. Are there some insights about a certain project that you know to be true? Do you have any sort of agreed upon social contracts of how you're going to work together that helps make the in the moment individualizing even more okay and even more safe and comfortable for that partnership? So you might even say things like, hey, could we always check in with each other when something big changes? Or how do we know all the players on the team are committed before we move forward? So it's trying to highlight that individualization, giving it a place that it can really be there during very important times by admitting that not everything about life is dynamic. There might be some static, I don't know, sort of anchor points that we can agree upon, that we can understand. I also think if you're partnering with someone with high individualization, give them some space to make the insights that you might miss. Ask them for what they're noticing about what others, what is in others that's promising. Ask them for those insights to potential. Ask them, hey, how could we better utilize or honor or appreciate this person that you're working with?
Mike, I also think individualization can look a little bit like a scatter plot where everything's just all over the place because it appears we are giving different plans to everyone. And we
Mm,
know in groups, there are times that all needs to come back together. And I think when we pull all this together and we think about partnering, I think some of us can partner with those. If the person with this individualization can't do it, partner to bring it back around. Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to do? It's getting everybody going the same direction. And you can have that individualization and still have everybody go the same direction. That's the genius in this.
yeah.
There are
Yeah.
people who can help you do both, right?
So I think it is, and if you're partnering, being able to talk about what's the direction. I think it's clear to the folks with individualization, what are we changing and what are we not. But if you're not in that scatter plot, you might not see what the edges of the paper are, right? So it's being able to say, what's the sandbox that we're individualizing within?
Yeah, no, for sure. We've been doing dominant theme and lesser theme challenges all season, and we've got a few for you here. If you want to keep track of those, actually, Micah got recognized by Jane Miller, our COO, who found on Instagram. I think it was on Instagram. Found,
It was when I took over our Clifton Strengths account. So you can follow us there too at Clifton Strengths on Instagram.
yeah, and so congratulations on that. By the way, Jane was super impressed with your graphical skills there. But we've been posting these on Instagram at Strengths Talk. You can also get them in the posts once we do the edited version of these. They're out there in our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com, on each individual post. But Micah, let's dig into these a little bit. What are these challenges that we have?
I've named them this time because they're a little bit wordy. Number one, same question, different answer. So find your best question for getting to know people better. You might call this an icebreaker, but ask that same question to four of your closest colleagues to better understand their uniqueness. Number one is something that's just giving yourself the space to do what you do well. Number two, become an expert in your own uniqueness. So, what's the best praise that you've ever received? How do you best learn? What is true about your strongest relationships? It's sort of turning that individualization on yourself. So, I would suggest doing number two as a journal exercise, giving yourself some space to really think about that and then put words to what's different and unique about yourself. And number three, learn about someone else's interests. So go a little bit deeper in something that you find to be unique about another person. What is an interesting hot button of somebody else? And then follow that hot button. And remember, a hot button is something that we are really excited about, where our voice gets a little bit faster and we could talk for days. Pick something that interests someone else and then read a book, an article, a blog, to better inform your appreciation of that.
That's a good one. I like that one. I kind of did that with a buddy on blockchain Like I had a buddy who was
Really?
bugging me about blockchain a couple years ago. I think, okay, fine. I'll learn something about it. And man, it was great to dig in a little bit. Got me super interested in it. So it's one of those. Be careful. You might get super interested in something somebody else is interested about when it happens. All right, lesser if we don't have it, Micah.
Yeah, if individualization is a lesser theme for you, your goal is to think about how you notice and appreciate the differences in others. So, what is your access to noticing that? Number one, develop a personalization system. So, you might not do this naturally, but write it down or have a system help you out. You might start by documenting something unique about 3 to 4 people on your team. It could be as easy as when is their birthday, where is their hometown, what's the best way that they like to connect with you. Write it down somewhere. Maybe even have a file. Number two, determine your capacity for bending the rules. When do you believe it's okay to deviate from common expectations? When is it best to stick to the same rule for everyone? Really, just do maybe a little bit of journaling there and explore what is your capacity for change and for breaking the rules.
Sharon said in chat, ooh, number 3, we went back to, she said, that's the hard one. I do part 1 all the time. Follow up for the second part, must do better. So good self-awareness on that and some good opportunities. Again, we these challenges are intended for you to learn and grow. Like that's just why we put them in there. So if you get a great opportunity to learn and grow, we'd love to hear about those processes. So whether you reply on Instagram or you jump into the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/call2coach. Let us know if you're not in there. Jump in there. I'll let you in and start the conversation there.
And hey, if you're doing this and it's not August 30th, 2018, you can still let us know in that Facebook group, right? This is something that's going to be, I think, have sort of an evergreenness to it. You'll always be able to start a great conversation by jumping in and letting us know how these goes.
Yeah. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about your successes, to be honest, in Facebook. We spend a lot of time talking. We do the name it a lot of times on Facebook. And I'd love to hear some of your success stories and not just your strength spotting success stories. Let's really figure people out. Let's really dig deep and get them on these themes. And let's really hear about their successes. And some of you have been doing that awesome. And so we appreciate that. Some of you we can hear from more. And so I'm going to appreciate in advance some of your posts that you're going to put in there. Again, that's in our Facebook group in the Webcast, the Gallup Webcast Facebook group. You find that by going to facebook.com/groups/called2coach. All one word, CALLEDTOCOACH. I'll let you in a great way to get that done. Again, just start a conversation. And there's 11,000 strengths enthusiasts in that group. They'd love to hear from you. Micah, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap this?
Just to underscore that piece, 11,000 people are in there because they believe that this is helpful and want to learn more. What better gift you can give to one of those people who happens to check it than going further in this conversation beyond just defining a theme or saying, hey, I saw this theme. Really helping give some story, give some meat to what does it look like when you invest in it? What does success look like with that theme? What can we do with this theme? I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming out early. And if you are listening to this and record and you're like, oh no, I missed it, you should probably follow us on Eventbrite so that you get those updates.
You get those updates. And if you register, a couple advantages to registering on Eventbrite. Again, gallup.eventbrite.com. One, you can download the calendar invite in your own time zone. 2, if I do change it, you'll get notified. And 3, 48 hours before the event, we'll send you a reminder. So we'd love to have you go out there and do that. Speaking of reminders, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. If you're a writer and you want to write some of this stuff down, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, put guest blogger in the subject line and write that out for us. We're a little backlogged at the moment, but we'd love to have your contribution in here. If you can send it in, it takes us a couple months to get those done and in, but we're looking for original content. 400 to 600 words. I don't know. Send it in. We'll see. It'll get to Micah, and we'll figure out if we can put it on our coach's blog for you. You can catch the audio and video of this program, as well as all the past ones, and all the links to all our social resources that we set. Basically, everything you need is on our resources tab at the coach's blog. Go to coaching. Write this down. coaching.gallup.com. If you're not visiting there on a fairly regular basis, you're kind of missing out. Okay, input people. You're missing out on a ton of stuff. I'm just saying, there's a ton of things there. We've worked really hard to make that a great resource for you. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, all the courses that lead to any of our certifications, and in some that don't, not everything has a certification, but they're listed on our courses page. Go to courses.gallup.com. Or you can send us that email. Again, if you have some questions around it, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll go into a little bit of post show. You only get the post show if you come out to the live show. We'd love to have you do that. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.